Be sure to like, comment, and subscribe for more amazing HFY stories. Hit the bell icon to get notified about our latest uploads. The coastal town of Larkspur had always been a quiet, humble place. Located at the edge of a rugged shoreline, it was a place where time seemed to slow down, and people had the luxury of thinking their lives were uneventful. But Alex Carter knew better. After all, he'd seen things. Strange things. A reclusive fisherman by trade, Alex had lived alone in a small cabin on the outskirts of town, far from the chatter of the bustling village center. The sea was his only companion, its ever-changing moods reflecting his own. But tonight something was different. The storm came without warning. It wasn't the typical coastal storm that might send villagers scurrying to shelter. No, this was something far stranger. The clouds that gathered on the horizon were darker than night, swirling with unnatural energy, as though the heavens themselves were in turmoil. As the first crack of thunder split the sky, the sea began to churn violently, waves crashing against the rocks with an intensity that felt almost deliberate. Alex stood at the edge of the dock, looking out over the tempest. His boat, tethered securely, bobbed wildly in the water, rocking back and forth like a toy in the hands of a child. He had seen many storms in his years on the water, but this one felt wrong. He was no stranger to the power of nature, but the energy in the air tonight was different. It felt as though the world itself was holding its breath, waiting for something. Suddenly, a brilliant flash of lightning split the sky, illuminating the dark waters with an eerie blue glow. Alex squinted, shielding his eyes against the brilliance, but it was the shape in the water that caught his attention. At first he thought it was just a trick of the light, a hallucination brought on by the storm's fury. But no, something was rising from the depths. A figure, illuminated by the lightning, was emerging from the sea. Alex's heart raced as he struggled to make sense of what he was seeing. The figure was humanoid, but nothing about it seemed natural. A woman, or something that resembled one, rose from the waves. Her skin shimmered like liquid silver, reflecting the light in impossible ways. Her hair, long and flowing, seemed to move as though alive, twisting and curling with the rhythm of the storm. But it was her eyes that took Alex's breath away. They were a deep, glowing blue, like two endless pools of light, full of mystery and danger. Before Alex could process what he was witnessing, the figure collapsed onto the rocks, barely managing to keep her head above the water. She was struggling, her body convulsing as if the storm itself had drained all her energy. Instinctively, Alex rushed forward, his mind racing to catch up with his actions. He grabbed her arm, pulling her from the surf, and with all his strength hauled her toward the safety of the shore. As he lifted her onto the wet sand, her eyes fluttered open, locking with his. For a moment, everything seemed to freeze. The storm raged on above them, but Alex couldn't tear his gaze away from her. The way she looked at him, there was something in her expression that made him feel like she knew him. Like she had been waiting for him. But that was impossible, wasn't it? Who are you? Alex stammered, his voice hoarse against the roar of the storm. He felt a strange pull toward her, an overwhelming sense that his entire life had been leading up to this moment. The woman blinked, her gaze unfocused as if she was still adjusting to the world around her. She opened her mouth, but only a soft, melodic hum escaped her lips. The sound sent a shiver down Alex's spine, stirring something deep inside him. Her voice, though incomprehensible, seemed to resonate with him, like a song that existed in his very bones. "Can you understand me?" he asked again, softer this time. Her eyes locked onto his again and she nodded, though her lips barely moved. The storm around them seemed to calm for a moment, as if the very world was waiting for her next words. I am called Elora," she whispered, her voice a blend of sweetness and sorrow. "I came from far away. A place, not like this." Alex tried to speak, but the words stuck in his throat. He wanted to ask her how she got here, why she was so different, but a strange energy in the air kept him silent. The humming sound grew stronger, vibrating in the air, and he could feel the storm's intensity swirling around them. It was as if the world had shifted and everything was now in motion. "Where do you come from?" Alex managed, his voice barely above a whisper. Elora's eyes flickered with a mixture of confusion and recognition. She opened her mouth to respond, but before she could speak, another bolt of lightning cracked through the sky, illuminating them both in a blinding flash. In that moment, Alex felt a deep connection to her, a bond he couldn't explain. Something in his soul resonated with hers, and for the first time in years, he didn't feel so alone. "Not from here," she finally said, her voice growing stronger. "I do not belong here." Alex was about to ask more, but the storm roared back to life, louder and fiercer than ever before. The wind howled, sending sand and debris swirling through the air. And just as quickly as she had appeared, Elora seemed to fade from his grasp, her form flickering in and out of existence as if she were being pulled back into the ether. Before he could react, the world went dark. The sun rose the next morning, bathing the coastal town of Larkspur in a soft, golden light. The storm had passed, leaving behind a strange stillness, as if the world itself was holding its breath. The air smelled of salt and ozone, a reminder of the chaos that had unfolded just hours before. Alex stood at the water's edge, staring out over the now calm sea. His mind was still reeling from the events of the previous night. He had seen her. Elora. A figure from a dream or perhaps a nightmare. He wasn't sure which. There were so many questions, too many for him to process all at once. But one thing was certain. His life had irrevocably changed. The town had begun to recover from the storm's fury, but Alex couldn't shake the feeling that something larger was at play. As a fisherman, he was no stranger to the unpredictable nature of the sea, but the storm from last night wasn't like anything he had ever experienced. And the woman, Elora, she was no ordinary being. The memory of her luminous eyes, her alien beauty, haunted him. There had been a connection between them, a deep and undeniable pull. He could still feel the hum in the air, the way her presence had resonated within him. But what did it mean? Why had she come to him? With a deep breath, Alex turned and made his way back to his cabin. He needed to think, to process, but there was no time to waste. The questions swirling in his mind wouldn't wait. And for the first time in a long while, he knew that he needed answers. The day passed slowly, with Alex unable to shake the image of Elora from his mind. It was as if she had imprinted herself on his soul, and no matter how hard he tried, he couldn't escape the pull of her presence. He spent the hours cleaning his boat, checking his gear, anything to distract himself from the gnawing curiosity that had taken root within him. It wasn't until late in the afternoon that he returned to the shore, unable to resist any longer. He needed to see if there was any trace of her. Perhaps it had all been a dream, a product of the storm's strange energy. But something told him it hadn't been. Something told him Elora was real. When he reached the rocks where he had pulled her from the water, his heart sank. There was no sign of her. The sand was undisturbed, the only evidence of the previous night's chaos, the scattered debris from the storm. He walked along the shore, calling her name softly, but there was no response. The world was quiet, and the only sound was the crash of waves against the rocks. Frustrated, Alex dropped to his knees, his mind racing. Had she left? Had she disappeared into the storm? Was she even real? Just as he was about to give up, a faint hum filled the air, growing louder and more distinct with each passing second. Alex's heart leapt in his chest as the air around him seemed to vibrate. He turned in the direction of the sound, his eyes scanning the horizon. And then he saw her. Elora stood on a distant outcrop of rocks, her figure outlined against the fading light of the setting sun. She looked as otherworldly as before, her silver skin gleaming in the dim light, her hair swirling around her like it had a life of its own. But it was her eyes that held him in place. Those deep, glowing blue eyes, full of unspoken stories and a sadness that made his heart ache. She was looking at him, and for a moment, neither of them moved. It was as if the world had paused, leaving only the two of them standing at the edge of everything. Elora, Alex called softly, his voice carrying across the water. He felt a sudden surge of hope, of certainty. She hadn't disappeared. She had come back. She stepped forward, her movements graceful, almost ethereal, as though she were gliding above the rocks rather than walking on them. As she neared, Alex felt the air around them grow thicker, charged with an energy that was both familiar and alien. "I didn't think I would find you again," Alex admitted, his voice hoarse as he took a step closer to her. Elora's eyes softened, though a flicker of sadness passed over her features. "I didn't expect to return," she said, her voice carrying a musical quality. "But I felt the pull. You and I, we are connected." Alex froze, his heart racing. "Connected? Oh, what do you mean?" "I cannot explain fully," Elora said, her gaze distant as though she were searching for the right words. "But something between us, something in the storm last night? I knew when I saw you, that you were the one I had been searching for." Alex frowned. "Searching for? I don't even know who you are. Where you're from. Why you're here." Elora's eyes darkened, her expression becoming more serious. "I am from a place far beyond your world. A place where the skies burn with fire, and the seas are deep and treacherous. My people, we are not like you. But we are connected. All of us." "Your people?" Alex asked, his confusion deepening. Elora nodded slowly. I was sent to this world as a messenger, a guardian. The storm last night was not just a storm. It was a signal, a way for me to reach you. To find you. She stepped closer, her presence overwhelming, and Alex could feel the hum of energy pulsing in the air between them. Why me? Alex asked, his voice barely a whisper. Elora hesitated, as though struggling with the truth. Because you are different. You have a strength inside you, a power that you do not understand. You have felt it, haven't you? The connection? Alex swallowed hard. He had felt it. The pull toward her, the way her presence seemed to awaken something deep within him. But what was it? And why now? I don't know what you mean, Alex admitted, though a small part of him was starting to believe her. Something had shifted in him when he had touched her, something ancient and primal that he couldn't explain. Elora's gaze softened. I wish I could explain it all to you, Alex. But the truth is, I need your help. There is something coming, something that threatens both our worlds. And only together can we stop it. The words hit Alex like a punch to the gut. His mind was reeling, his heart pounding with a mixture of fear and excitement. A threat? To both their worlds? Why me? He repeated, his voice tinged with disbelief. I'm just a fisherman. I have nothing to offer. You have more than you realize, Elora said, stepping even closer. And time is running out. Alex looked into her eyes, feeling the weight of her words settle over him. He didn't know how or why, but he knew that his life was no longer his own. Something larger than him was at play, and Elora was the key. I'll help you, he said, his voice firm, though his mind was still struggling to comprehend what had just happened. But you have to tell me everything. Elora nodded, her gaze steady. I will. But first we must leave this place. There's much more to explain and we cannot stay here much longer. Alex nodded, a sense of determination growing within him. Whatever was coming, he knew he couldn't face it alone. And with Elora by his side, he would discover just how far this strange connection between them went. The wind had shifted overnight, bringing with it the scent of salt and damp earth. Larkspur, a place Alex had once considered a safe haven, now felt like a distant memory. Everything had changed the moment Elora had appeared on that stormy night, and as much as he wanted to return to his simple, solitary life, the pull to understand what was happening only grew stronger. Alex had spent the night in restless sleep, his dreams haunted by flashes of images he couldn't quite comprehend, alien landscapes, distant stars, and a voice that whispered in languages he couldn't understand. But through it all, one thing stood clear. He could not turn away from Elora. She was right. There was something between them, something that connected their fates. The next morning they met again at the edge of the town where the forest met the shore. Elora had insisted they leave immediately, and though Alex didn't fully understand why, he didn't argue. Her urgency was palpable, and the air around her still hummed with an energy that made everything feel too real to ignore. Where are we going? Alex asked, his voice breaking the silence that had stretched between them since their last conversation. He kept his distance, though he couldn't deny the fascination he felt every time he looked at her. Elora paused for a moment, her gaze shifting toward the dense trees. We must leave the town. There are others who might be looking for me, and they would not hesitate to bring harm to this place. I've overstayed my welcome. Who's looking for you? Alex pressed, his instincts telling him that there was more at play here than Elora was letting on. Enemies, she said, her voice low and grave. Not just my enemies. Our enemies? Alex narrowed his eyes. What does that mean? I don't understand. What do you want from me? Elora hesitated, then met his eyes with a look that seemed to pierce right through him. I'm not just here to find refuge, Alex. I came because the storm last night, it wasn't random. It was a signal to me, a warning. But it wasn't only for me. It was for you too. It's why you felt the pull. There's something inside you, something ancient. Something that's part of a much larger picture. Alex recoiled slightly, his pulse quickening. Ancient? What are you talking about? She took a deep breath, the silence between them thickening. You and I, Alex, we're linked. More than you can imagine. And whatever is coming, it involves both of us. Alex shook his head, disbelief fighting with the growing urgency in Elora's voice. I'm just a fisherman. I don't have anything to offer. You're wrong, she said firmly. You are not just a fisherman. You've always known this, even if you've ignored it. The storm didn't bring me to you by chance. There's a reason it chose you. Alex felt his heart race. A sinking feeling lodged itself in his chest, and a cold chill swept over him. He had always felt different, alien even, but he had never allowed himself to truly consider what that might mean. Ellara's words, though, opened something deep inside him. A long-buried truth, something forgotten but familiar, stirred within him. "I don't understand," Alex muttered, his voice strained. "What am I supposed to do with this power you're talking about?" "You will learn," Ellara said, her tone softening, though her eyes were filled with an intensity that belied her calm demeanor. "But first we must go. We don't have much time." She turned and began to walk into the forest, her steps light and graceful, her presence like a beacon in the dense wilderness. Alex hesitated for a moment longer, then followed her. A part of him still wanted to run. He had no idea what he was getting himself into, and everything about Ellara felt like a storm waiting to break. But another part of him knew he had no choice. Whatever was happening, it was bigger than him. And he couldn't ignore it. They traveled in silence, the air thick with the scent of damp foliage and the sound of distant birds. Ellara led the way with a quiet confidence, her steps sure and unhurried, as if she knew exactly where she was going. Alex followed, his mind spinning with questions that he couldn't seem to form into words. The deeper they went into the forest, the more Alex could feel the change in the air. It was subtle at first, an odd vibration beneath his feet, a hum that seemed to come from the very earth. But soon the sensation became overwhelming, filling his entire body with a strange electric energy. "What is this?" Alex asked, his voice tinged with awe. "What's happening?" "This place," Ellara explained, glancing over her shoulder. "It's where the veil between worlds is thinnest. Where the energies of this world and others intersect." The sound of birds faded into an eerie quiet as they reached the heart of the forest. The trees around them seemed to stretch toward the sky in unnatural angles, their trunks twisted and gnarled, as if they had grown in response to some ancient force. In the center of the clearing stood a stone altar, half buried beneath vines and moss. It was old, older than anything Alex had ever seen, and though it looked abandoned, it radiated an energy that felt both familiar and foreign. Ellara stepped forward, placing a hand on the altar. "This is the place I've been drawn to. Where I can speak to the others." Alex approached cautiously, his mind racing. "The others?" "My people," Ellara said softly. "The ones who sent me here. They're the ones who need to hear the warning. The ones who need to know what's coming. But before I can reach them, I need your help." Alex felt a tightening in his chest. "What do you mean, help?" Ellara's gaze turned serious. "You and we are connected, Alex. You are the key. The power inside you is not just some coincidence. It's ancient. And it's why the storm was sent to find you. You were chosen." "Chosen for what?" Alex's voice faltered, uncertainty flooding his thoughts. "I don't understand any of this." Ellara took a deep breath and turned to face him fully, her eyes meeting his with an intensity that was almost overwhelming. "The storm, the energy, the connection, it's all part of a greater plan. A plan that has been set in motion long before we were born. And now it's up to us to stop it." A shiver ran down Alex's spine as the weight of her words settled over him. He had always felt different, always felt as though there was something more waiting for him, but this was beyond anything he could have ever imagined. "What is coming, Ellara?" Alex asked, his voice barely above a whisper. "The greatest threat our worlds have ever faced," she said gravely. "And it begins with you." The air around them crackled with energy, the hum of power growing louder, almost deafening. Alex could feel his heart pounding in his chest, his senses alive with an energy he couldn't control. The ground beneath his feet trembled, and the stone altar before him began to glow with an eerie light. Ellara's gaze softened, and she placed a hand on his shoulder. "It's time, Alex. You must remember. You have the strength inside you to face what's coming." For the first time since they had met, Alex didn't feel afraid. Instead, he felt something else, a burning determination. Whatever was coming, he wasn't going to face it alone. Not with Ellara by his side. He nodded. "I'm ready." The ground beneath Alex's feet hummed with a strange, pulsing energy. It felt alive, as if the very earth were aware of their presence. The air in the clearing crackled with electricity, a force he couldn't quite comprehend but instinctively felt was both dangerous and vital. Ellara had stepped back slightly, her eyes narrowed in concentration as she gazed at the glowing stone altar before them. Alex stood there uncertain, but he didn't dare move. Something deep inside him told him to stay, to not interrupt whatever was happening. His body tingled with a power he had never felt before, as though the energy in the air was sinking into him, filling him, awakening something that had long been dormant. He had always known he was different. But never like this. "Ellara," he began, his voice thick with uncertainty. "What's happening? What do I need to do?" Her gaze flickered to him, her expression soft yet urgent. You've already begun, Alex. This is where it starts. The power inside you is awakening. But it needs to be harnessed. Awakening? What do you mean? Alex's chest tightened with anxiety, his pulse racing. I don't understand. What power? The power of your lineage, she replied, her voice steady but filled with a hidden weight. It's a gift passed down through generations. The connection between us, between you and me, it's more than just fate. It's part of an ancient force, something that stretches across the fabric of space and time. And now it's yours to wield. Alex shook his head, his mind a whirlwind of disbelief and fear. I'm just a fisherman. I don't have any special lineage, Elora. You're talking about things I can't even begin to understand. I know this is overwhelming, Elora said softly, taking a step closer. But you must trust me. You have the power to shape what happens next. The storm, the connection, it was all to bring you here, to this moment. You have the potential to stop what is coming. What is coming, Elora? Alex asked, the desperation in his voice growing. What are we talking about here? I'm not some hero. I can't fight this whatever it is. Elora's gaze softened, and for a brief moment, Alex saw something like pity in her eyes. You may not see yourself as a hero, Alex, but that's the role you were chosen for. The power you carry, it's ancient, far older than any of us. And it's the key to stopping the threat that is already stirring. She reached out and placed a hand on his chest, over his heart. The moment her skin made contact, Alex felt a surge of energy, like a lightning bolt had coursed through his veins. His body shook with the intensity of it, but there was no pain, only an overwhelming sense of awakening. The force within him, the thing he had always felt but never understood, flared to life. What was that? Alex gasped, his breath coming in shallow bursts. The first step, Elora said, her voice barely audible. Your energy is connected to this world, and beyond it. But you must learn to focus it, to channel it. Alex's vision blurred for a moment, and he felt himself falling into a trance-like state. The clearing around him seemed to vanish, replaced by flashes of strange, vivid landscapes, alien skies, darkened cities, and distant worlds filled with chaos. He saw flashes of beings, otherworldly creatures that looked both menacing and mournful. A war, a vast, destructive conflict that stretched across the stars. And then he saw himself, standing at the center of it all, holding the key to stopping it. The vision faded as quickly as it had come, leaving Alex breathless and confused. His heart raced in his chest, and the hum of energy around him seemed to amplify. What was that? He asked, his voice hoarse. What did I see? Elora's expression was filled with quiet urgency. The vision was a glimpse of the future, a future we must prevent. The war you saw, Alex, it's already beginning. And it's tied to the awakening of the power inside you. Alex stood there, speechless, as the weight of her words sank in. He had just seen a glimpse of destruction on a scale he couldn't fathom, a war that spanned not just worlds but entire galaxies. And he was somehow connected to it, to the fate of the universe itself. How do I stop it? He asked, his voice barely above a whisper. Elora looked at him for a long moment, her eyes filled with a sadness that spoke volumes. I wish I had all the answers, Alex. But the truth is, you must learn. You must learn to control the power inside you before it's too late. That's why I'm here. To help you. Control it? Alex repeated, his voice tinged with disbelief. I don't even know what it is, Elora. How am I supposed to control something I don't understand? Elora nodded slowly, her gaze softening with understanding. You're not alone in this. I will teach you step by step. But it will take time. The power you carry is vast, and it is not easily controlled. There will be trials, tests of your will and strength. Alex took a deep breath, his mind swirling with the enormity of the task before him. He had never asked for this, never imagined his life would take such a dramatic turn. But the weight of Elora's words settled over him. There was no turning back now. Whatever this was, whatever the storm, the power, the war, it was his responsibility to face. How do we start? Alex asked, his voice steady despite the chaos raging inside him. Elora stepped back slightly, her eyes scanning the clearing. We start by awakening your senses. The first step is learning to feel the energy around you. It's everywhere, Alex. You must attune yourself to it, let it flow through you. Energy? Alex repeated, trying to grasp the concept. You mean like the electricity in the air? Exactly, Elora said, her voice growing more confident. That is one aspect of it. But there is more. The energy you will learn to control is ancient, universal. It flows through everything, the earth, the sky, the stars, and even the beings who inhabit this world. You are a conduit for that energy. She extended her hand toward him. Focus on me, Alex. Let the energy around us come to you. Close your eyes and feel it. You've felt it before, haven't you? Alex closed his eyes, taking a deep breath. The hum in the air, the vibration under his feet, it was stronger now, more pronounced. He reached out with his senses, trying to feel it, trying to connect to it in some way. And then something clicked. He could feel the energy around him, like an invisible web that stretched across the clearing, through the trees and beyond. It was an overwhelming sensation, but it wasn't just in the air. It was within him, too, flowing through his body. He could feel it coursing through his veins, like a current that was both foreign and familiar. His heart raced as he concentrated, trying to control the surge of power. It's there, Ellara's voice came softly, a soothing presence in the midst of the chaos. You're doing it. Now focus. Channel it. Alex focused harder, trying to control the wild energy that was surging within him. The clearing seemed to pulse with the force of it, the trees vibrating, the ground shaking slightly beneath his feet. It was like trying to tame a storm, to harness a force that was far beyond his understanding. But as the seconds stretched on, something began to change. The energy in the air seemed to calm, to settle, as if Alex had begun to guide it, just a little. The pressure in his chest lessened, and the buzzing in his ears faded. He opened his eyes to find the clearing still and quiet, the energy humming softly around him. You did it, Ellara said, a hint of awe in her voice. You've begun to control it? Alex's breath was heavy, his body drained from the effort. That was harder than I thought it would be. It will get easier, Ellara reassured him. But for now this is enough. You've taken the first step. The rest will come with time. But remember, Alex, this power is not just for you. It's the key to everything. And it's up to you to decide how it will be used. Alex stood there, his body still buzzing with the energy he had just learned to control. He didn't know what the future held, but one thing was certain. He was no longer just a fisherman. He was something else entirely. And the war she had warned him about was coming. And now he was ready to fight. The first rays of dawn barely broke through the thick canopy of trees overhead, casting dappled light across the forest floor. Alex stood in the center of the clearing, his body still humming with the strange ancient power that had awakened within him. Ellara watched from the edge, her expression unreadable but her eyes sharp, ever vigilant. Despite the peace of the morning, a sense of urgency gripped Alex. The energy that flowed through him was both exhilarating and terrifying. He had taken his first steps in learning to control it, but there was so much more to learn. And time, as Ellara had repeatedly warned, was not on their side. Are you ready for the next step? Ellara's voice broke the silence, steady and calm. Alex nodded, though a knot of unease twisted in his gut. I think so. But I still don't understand what's really happening, Ellara. The visions, the power. This war you keep talking about. I need to know more. Ellara's eyes softened, and she took a slow, deliberate step toward him. I wish I could explain everything to you all at once, Alex. But the truth is, this is bigger than you or me. What's coming? It's a war that will shape the fate of not just this world but many others. And your role in it is crucial. Alex inhaled sharply, trying to digest her words. What kind of war? And why me? I'm just a fisherman. I don't have the experience or the skills to fight some intergalactic war. Ellara's gaze darkened, and she motioned for Alex to follow her. As they walked together, her tone grew more serious. This war is not about weapons or armies, Alex. It's a war of survival. The enemy is not just another race or civilization. It is a force, an ancient power that devours worlds, civilizations, entire star systems. It's called the Devourer. The Devourer? Alex repeated, the name feeling like a cold stone in his mouth. What is it? It's a force that has existed for eons, Ellara explained, her voice low and filled with quiet dread. A hunger that has consumed countless worlds, leaving nothing behind but ashes. It is relentless, merciless. It does not conquer in the traditional sense. It consumes. It eradicates entire civilizations not out of malice but because it needs to feed. It is the end of everything it touches. Alex's mind spun as the weight of her words settled over him. He had never imagined such a thing could exist. The idea of an unstoppable, world-devouring force was beyond his comprehension, but the conviction in Ellara's voice left little room for doubt. And how do I stop it? Alex asked, his voice shaking slightly with a mixture of fear and determination. Ellara paused, her expression solemn. That is what we must discover. The power within you, Alex, it is the key. But how to use it, how to harness it, that is what we must figure out. It's not just about strength. It's about understanding the balance of this power, how to wield it in the right way. Alex felt a chill run down his spine. He had already seen the devastation the Devourer could wreak in his vision. The image of countless worlds, of entire civilizations, crumbling to dust had haunted him. The thought of standing against such a force without truly understanding the power he wielded terrified him. "How do we find the answers?" he asked, his voice barely above a whisper. "How do we stop something that powerful?" Ellora's eyes hardened with a fierce resolve. "We gather those who can help us. There are other beings who have fought the Devourer before. And we must find them." "Others?" Alex asked, his brow furrowing. "Who are they?" "Different races, different worlds. They are scattered across the stars, hiding in the shadows of the Devourer's reach. We need to find them, bring them together. But that will not be easy. The Devourer has already begun its hunt for those who oppose it." Alex's heart quickened as he processed her words. "And how do we find them? We don't even know where to start." Ellora gave him a sharp look, a glimmer of something like hope in her eyes. "That's where you come in, Alex. The power within you is not just the key to stopping the Devourer. It's also the key to locating those who can help us. Your connection to the energy, the fabric of this universe, it allows you to sense them, to find them." Alex shook his head, disbelief creeping into his voice. "You're saying I can find other beings across the stars just by using this power?" "Not just across the stars," Ellora corrected, "but through time and space itself. The energy you control is not bound by distance. It connects all things, past, present, and future. That's why you were chosen. It is your destiny, Alex. You can reach out, feel where they are, and draw them to us." The weight of her words settled over him like a storm cloud. He didn't feel ready for this. He wasn't sure he could live up to whatever expectations Ellora had for him, much less find others who could help them stop the Devourer. But the sense of purpose that had begun to grow inside him could no longer be ignored. "I'll do it," Alex said, his voice steady despite the unease twisting in his gut. "I'll help you. I'll find them. But where do we start?" Ellora smiled, a brief flash of pride in her eyes. "We start by reaching out. The first connection is always the hardest, but once it's made, the others will follow. You have to focus on the energy, Alex. Think about it as if it were a compass. Feel the pull of the connections and follow them." Alex closed his eyes, trying to calm his racing thoughts. The idea of reaching out across the stars, of feeling distant worlds and civilizations, seemed impossible. But he had felt the power surge within him. The energy was real, it was part of him now. He took a deep breath and focused. At first nothing happened. But then, slowly he felt it, a subtle tug like a thread connecting him to something far away. It was faint at first, a whisper of energy he could barely make out. But the more he focused, the clearer it became. The pull grew stronger, more distinct. He could feel it, a presence not on this world but somewhere far beyond. "It's working," Ellora whispered, her voice filled with awe. "You're doing it?" The pull became more defined, and Alex's heart raced as he felt the energy coursing through him, drawing him toward something, someone. The sensation was like reaching out into a vast, dark ocean and finding a thread that connected him to the depths. Suddenly, a flash of light exploded in his mind. He saw a face, a being unlike anything he had ever imagined. It was humanoid, but its features were sharp and angular, with deep eyes that seemed to see through him. The being's skin shimmered with an ethereal glow, and it held an aura of wisdom, power, and ancient strength. The vision faded just as quickly as it had come, leaving Alex gasping for air, his heart pounding. "I found one," he whispered, his voice trembling with a mixture of awe and fear. Ellora's eyes widened, and she moved closer to him, her face alight with hope. "Who was it? What did you see?" "I don't know," Alex said, still reeling from the intensity of the vision. "But it was real. I felt it, someone out there, someone powerful." Ellora's expression softened, and for the first time, Alex saw the full extent of her hope. "That was just the beginning, Alex. The others are out there. And now we know how to find them. You've taken the first step. The Devourer may be close, but so are those who will stand with us." As Alex stood there, his heart still racing, he couldn't help but feel the weight of the journey ahead. He had taken the first step, but there was still so much to do, so much to understand. The storm was gathering, and with it, the fate of not just his world but countless others. But he was ready. He had to be. The days that followed were filled with action and urgency. The world around Alex had become a blur of constant movement, each moment an urgent call to prepare for what was to come. He and Ellora traveled across the land, seeking out other individuals, other beings who might be able to join their cause. The energy that pulsed within Alex had grown stronger, more familiar, and he had learned to tap into it with greater precision. Each time he reached out across the vast reaches of space, the pull grew more defined, guiding him toward those who could help. As they neared the final destination of their journey, an ancient, forgotten city buried deep in the mountains, Alex felt the weight of the task they had set before them. He had seen the faces of the allies they had gathered in his visions, warriors, scholars, and leaders from distant worlds, each one driven by the same burning desire to stop the devourer. But now, standing before the crumbling gates of this city, the weight of what they were about to face loomed over him. "I think we're close," Elora said, her voice steady but laced with something else, perhaps anticipation or fear. Alex wasn't sure which. "The final ally, the one who holds the key to the next step in our plan, is here." "Who are they?" Alex asked, his voice thick with tension. He had seen glimpses of the other beings they had contacted, but this final figure, this key to their mission, remained a mystery. All he knew was that they were someone with great power, someone who could help them defeat the devourer. Elora's expression darkened. "Someone who has been watching from the shadows. Someone who understands the devourer's true nature. Someone who can help us unlock the last of the power you carry, Alex." Together, they crossed the threshold into the forgotten city, the ancient stones beneath their feet echoing with the weight of centuries. The city was silent, its once great structures now little more than ruins, half swallowed by the earth and time. Yet despite its decay, there was an undeniable presence in the air, a feeling that something important was hidden here, something they had come to find. They walked through the abandoned streets, the only sound the soft crunch of gravel beneath their boots. Elora led the way, her eyes scanning the surroundings with the practiced intensity of someone who had walked through this world for far longer than Alex could imagine. Finally, they came to a large stone archway, its surface etched with intricate symbols that seemed to glow faintly with an inner light. "This is it," Elora said, her voice barely a whisper. She placed her hand on the arch, her fingers brushing the ancient markings. "This is where we find the key." The moment her hand made contact, the symbols flared to life, a cascade of light rushing through the air. Alex staggered back, feeling a sudden surge of power from the archway, as if the city itself had come alive. The ground trembled, and the air thickened with an otherworldly energy. From the depths of the stone archway, a figure emerged. The being was tall, nearly twice the height of a human, with skin that shimmered like liquid silver. Their features were sharp, their eyes glowing with an intensity that could not be mistaken for anything other than ancient knowledge. The being's presence was both calming and terrifying, a paradox that made Alex feel both safe and utterly insignificant at the same time. The figure regarded them silently for a long moment, their gaze settling on Alex with an intensity that seemed to pierce through him. Then, with a voice like distant thunder, the being spoke. "You are the one who has awakened, Alex," the voice echoed, carrying both power and wisdom. "The one who carries the key to the fate of this world, and many others." Alex swallowed hard, his throat dry. "Yes. I don't understand everything, but I'm here. We're here to stop the devourer." The being's eyes softened slightly, as though understanding the weight of his words. "The devourer is a force that no one truly understands. It is older than any civilization, older than time itself. And yet you, Alex, you have been chosen to stand against it." "Chosen?" Alex repeated. "But I'm just a fisherman. I don't know how to stop something like that." The being stepped closer, their presence almost overwhelming. "It is not just your strength, Alex. It is your connection to the energy of the universe, the same energy that flows through all living things. The devourer's power is destructive, consuming. But the power you wield, if unlocked, can counter it. You are not just a fisherman. You are the balance." Elora stepped forward, her eyes filled with both reverence and fear. "What do we need to do? How do we stop it?" The being raised their hand, and suddenly the air around them shimmered with an ethereal glow. "The final step, the key to unlocking the full power within you, Alex, is a union of energy. A convergence of purpose. You must reach out, connect with the allies you've gathered. Your power is not singular. It is shared. Together, you will be able to form the force needed to fight the devourer." Alex nodded, trying to keep his fear in check. "So I need to connect with them? But how?" The being's gaze softened, and they raised a hand toward the sky. "You will feel it when the time comes. The threads that bind you all together, the force that links your fates, it is already beginning to pull at you. Trust in it. Let it guide you." Alex closed his eyes, trying to calm the storm of thoughts racing through his mind. The energy within him pulsed, almost as if it was responding to the being's words. He reached out with his senses, feeling the familiar tug, the pull of the connections he had already made with the others. It was like a web, invisible yet real. He could sense their presence, each one a beacon in the vast expanse of space. The others, the beings from distant worlds who had agreed to join their cause, were out there. And through the energy he could feel the growing strength of their collective resolve. Focus, the being's voice came again, gentle yet commanding. Focus on the unity, on the strength of the bond you share with them. You are not alone in this, Alex. Together, you will stop the devourer. Alex took a deep breath, concentrating, letting the energy flow through him and out toward the others. It wasn't just a feeling of power, it was a sense of purpose, of collective will. He reached beyond the stars, across galaxies, connecting with the beings who had pledged their strength to this fight. And then, it happened. The world around him exploded with light and sound, an immense surge of energy as the forces of the universe converged on a single point. The power within him, the power of all those who had joined the cause, surged to a singular focus. For a brief moment, Alex was consumed by the overwhelming force of it all. The energy of the cosmos, the will of the beings who stood with him, all channeled into a single purpose. And then, with a final resounding pulse, the energy solidified, forming into a massive wave of power that stretched across space, reaching for the heart of the devourer. Alex opened his eyes to find the being before him nodding in approval. "You have done it," the being said. "The devourer will not be able to withstand this force." Alex felt a weight lift from his shoulders. He had done it. The war wasn't over, not yet, but they had taken the first step. The enemy was no longer an unstoppable force. It was a challenge, a force that could be confronted and defeated. As Elora stepped forward, a proud smile on her face, Alex felt a surge of hope for the first time since this journey had begun. The storm that had once seemed all-consuming was now something they could face together. The battle was far from over. But now they had a chance. And that was enough. The end. Thanks for watching, everyone. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe for more exciting HFY stories. Your support means the world to us. And make sure to tap the bell icon so you never miss an update. Stay tuned for our next adventure, and until then, keep exploring the stars. See you in the next video.